let's briefly start with just our basic text command. So I'm going to go up here. Let's actually change our layer. I'm going to go to L-Anno. So that's a very typical layer name for the landscape annotation. So Anno is annotation. See below that, I also have in my template Anno symbol. That's going to be for things like this, elevation, spot grades, and different types of symbols that are in here. We'll talk about that when we get to other notations in a later lesson. But first, let's do the most basic text object that we can do. So the command for that is dt. And what that is going to do, so you do dt, and then it wants you, let's do that one more time. dt space or enter. It's telling us at the top of our command box what our current text style is. We're going to talk about text styles in this lesson. Its current height. We're also going to talk about what that height represents, whether it's annotative. We're never doing annotative in this series. That has to do with, I think, the overall cleanliness of a drawing. Annotative objects can be very helpful, but I find that they cause a bit more headaches than they should. And where it's justifying, so it's justifying to the left-hand side. So what it's asking is, okay, so you're starting text, specify start point of text. So I'm just going to click here. It says, and then our next prompt is specify rotation angle of text. I'm just going to hit enter for 0. That's the default that comes up. And we get a blinking text cursor like you would get in most programs. Let's type test. And if we click again, we've got test 02, and it'll just let us keep making test 03. Oop, 3. If I hit enter, it adds a space at the bottom. So let's do test 04. And I can get out of that by hitting escape. So you'll see, and this is the difference of why we're not going to be using text, but rather a thing called MTEXT, which is a multi-line text object. So you saw when I did test 3, I hit return as if to go down to the lower paragraph, but these are separate items rather than joined as if they're a part of the same paragraph. All of these are separate. You'll notice their grip points are bottom left. I can use that to move it around. And this looks like it came in at, actually we can check the properties. So even if I select all of these properties, it's saying, again, just like I said when we were covering properties, depending on the object that you have selected, it's going to show you different information. So this is showing us, color by layer. That's what we always want. The layer name, L-Anno, that's what we want. All of this is by layer. Line type scale 1 is totally fine. Contents varies. That's because if we select just one of them, it'll say what it is, and we can actually change that if we want to. SP Arial, so that is the text style, and we're going to go in and look at how to set one of those up. Annotative no, that was what we wanted. Justify left, that's what we want. Height is 15 inches or 1 foot 3 inches. Rotation is 0. Width factor is 1. That's also sort of the default. That has to do with kind of crunching this down. So for example, if I select this and do 0.8, it's going to tighten up. Same with obliquing. This sort of angles it almost as if it's italics. But we're going to leave those as 0. I don't really ever do those anyway. Again, I like to have my text as simple as possible rather than a lot of fancy text. I'd prefer more sheets that are clean and clear to read than 20 different types of fonts and text styles to show different elements. So these are all fine. These work. There's an issue that you can't do multi-lines. So to solve that at some point, let's keep the original one. AutoCAD changed and added a thing called MTEXT. So that's the multi-line, and you get a couple of other options within the properties that you can use to change and edit that text. So the command for that is either T-enter. Again, you now see MTEXT still telling us our current text style is SP Arial. That's what we want, our text style. Text height is at 15 inches. That's what we also want. I'll talk about why in a second. And now it's asking specify first corner. So not insertion point, but first corner. So I'm going to click here, just draw a box. Now we have a little bit of a different input. This almost looks like we're in a Word document or something like that. We've got tabs and inserts or insets and indents, and just a couple of other things we can do. I can make this box larger if I want. And as you can see, if I click in here, I can do test 02, hit enter, test 03. And now if I click off of that and then select this, it selects both of them, and I'm getting more grip points. So let's talk about what these different grip points are before we move forward with styles, and we'll cover a couple of other properties that we can change to this. Right now we've got our starting point. So that is based off of justify. So it's saying top left. That's sort of standard how you would input text if you're writing a paragraph of a story or anything like that. That's a good starting point. There's reasons to change that, which I'll show you as well. So that's a new one, is this top left, not just left, because now we're dealing with multiple lines. This one is showing the outside part of that box. And this bottom one has to do with column height. Now, this is sort of a default. I'm sure you can change this in your preferences. I just set up all my templates, so I do not have columns set up. I very rarely use columns other than when I'm doing, for example, like a planting schedule or a written spec sheet that's included with the sheet set. Other than that, I usually don't have columns, so I actually prefer to not have this set up because I'll show you why. There's a different setup. Now, the way to change that, if you're getting this middle grip point, is to go to columns. What it's showing right now is dynamic. So I'm going to click here, and I get a little box out to the right-hand corner. That's going to open up this sub-menu called column settings. And there's a couple of different ways you can get your column settings. We're not going to go into columns really. Well, maybe, yeah, we'll cover columns. But what I'm going to change this to, and what you should usually have as your default, is no columns. These are simple text callouts or locations, so we'd like to keep it that way. So I'm going to hit OK. So now you can see these grip points change. So now I got this outside corner, this bottom corner, or the outside left corner. So for example, if I move this, and then I click in here, you can see that basically represents this corner right here. This is that outside edge as well. I don't think I can drop it down, but I can do it from here if I really wanted to. Similarly, while we're in here, you've got other options in here. So we could add an indent, which means I could hit tab, and now I have an indent. I'll do that. We'll kind of look at that when I show you the planting sheets, because I like to set up planting sheets a certain way. So you can set up tabs. That's really handy. Let's undo that. There's also a paragraph setting that you can change. So there's a lot of options in here to move and set up these text boxes in different ways that are worth trying out. So there's other indents, lower paragraph settings you can make for lists, items like that. So MTEXT gives you a lot more flexibility when you're setting up your text boxes. So I use MTEXT only. I actually will go around and convert the basic text to allow this level of flexibility. And ultimately, it's easier to handle with your styles as well.